Hey there, sacramental mushrooms. How are you? Thank you for being back on my channel. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. I'm very excited to have such a great sponsor, and I will talk about that a little bit later in this video, talk about all the features and the gorgeous things that they offer. But for now, this is my very first full dedicated video about coming out of the broom closet. There's so many things on my channel that I still haven't tackled after so long. And I did answer this in a Q&A a very long time ago, what I think about coming out of the broom closet and my advice and stuff. But this is the first time I'm dedicating a whole video to it. The first thing that I want to say for any of you that are tackling this right now is that you don't have to. You don't have to come out of the broom closet. That is the first thing that I think I always feel moved to say about this topic. I'm not going to put too fine a point on it because I do discuss it in my book, Rebel Witch. But I just wanted to say, you know, you don't have to feel like it makes you more legit or more powerful. You don't have to feel like it makes you a better class of practitioner. There are many reasons why somebody might not come out of the broom closet or might not come out to everybody. You're just not obligated. You don't owe it to anyone. It can be incredibly liberating. It is a milestone for a lot of witches, there's no doubt. And I'm definitely not shitting on any of that. I think that's incredible. But this video is going to be filled with, you know, some care advice, some warning elements, and some sort of cautionary aspects, because I give a shit about you. And I know that not everybody's situation is the same. And I know that there are some reasons why people might not come out of the broom closet, or indeed might not do so in a clean cut way, you know, to everybody in their lives or to all of their loved ones at once or whatever. So we're going to get into it. We're going to go on a little exploration here. I have had the very great privilege of speaking with a lot of practitioners over the course of time about coming out of the broom closet, the specifics of that. And so I feel like a lot of my advice is coming from that perspective. Every single practitioner has to do a little bit of weighing up, a little bit of assessing what is going on in their personal journey. One reason that I think is very legitimate for not coming out of the broom closet, and I guess this is obvious, is don't come out of it if it's not safe to do so. If you will be thrown out of your home, if you will be massively financially disenfranchised, if you feel like you are genuinely in danger of losing your job, something of that nature, obviously those things are way more important on a practical, you know, Maslow's hierarchy way of things, than, you know, owning your craft publicly, owning it in front of your loved ones. There are specific worldly things to very much consider, and it's okay if you consider those things. Some people just live in a situation where they might potentially be attacked by others around them, where they already do not feel safe with somebody in their midst. And so why would they make that potentially more unsafe? You know, these things totally make sense. So, you know, I think it's a point of not giving somebody more potential ammunition. I think if you know that it will be worth it, whatever happens, then fair enough. And lots of people feel that way, but it's okay if you don't feel that way and if that's not your situation. So I just wanted to get that right out of the way first. If you're unsure about coming out of the broom closet and that is why you've come to this video, I think one of the best things to do is to check your reasons. And I have a massive list of reasons that I made here for this very video. So I'm going to read them out, okay? If you don't feel like you need this part, as always, timestamps are down below. They are your friend, okay? I do make long form videos. That's not going to change anytime soon. So I like to go really deeply into the subject I'm approaching. So here are some reasons that I've come across from my clients and my audience members over time, from witches that I have hobnobbed with in the online world and in the real world, in the material world. These are some reasons that I've come across. I wanted to make a pretty exhaustive list, okay? All right. You're having a pagan wedding, you're having a pagan naming ceremony, you know, you're having a pagan themed birthday celebration, something of that nature. You either want to invite people or you feel like it might very much be present on social media in front of people who don't know. And so you feel like now's the time, you know, the present time is the moment to do it. You're starting an online presence and you feel like it would be a lot less anxiety inducing for you, and it would go a lot more smoothly if you just told people in advance, you know, this is the nature of my spiritual path and it's going to be coming out online. I've put here, you're close to the person that you're coming out to in every other way, and it feels weird to conceal this when it means so much to you. In other words, you want them to know you for who you truly are. That is a big one. That is a really big one. You're about to make a big life decision together with somebody else, which would perhaps entitle them to know. And I think, you know, that's things like, for example, you know, that you spend a lot of time doing witchy things, and so they're going to need to know that's a factor. Maybe you are thinking of having children together. I mean, I hope if you're at that point, then they already know pretty much the extent of your spiritual life. Or you have an online presence and you want to get into a creative collaboration with somebody else. Maybe they should know a little bit of your business before they go into partnership with you, that kind of thing. There's many ways that it can be the case that somebody might have the right to know before they engage in something with you. I've put here, you're sick of hiding your books, your decks, your jewelry, etc. You're sick of tucking things away. That is a big one. I've spoken to so many practitioners who are just fed up of being a fully fledged adult and feeling like they have to run around and pack things up before someone comes over. You'd rather do it consciously than by accident is a big one. I think sometimes people get to the point where there are so many little Easter eggs and little clues and things that are said online, or friends that people keep that are also into the spiritual path, that it almost feels like, you know what, I'm going to take control before control is taken from me by something incidental that happens that brings me out of the closet, you know, at a time that I wasn't expecting. One thing I've written here is you realise that hiding it is affecting your mental health. That is something I've discussed with people, you know, it's just creating anxiety, it's creating tension, it's making someone trip over every word they say. It feels deceptive on some level, and it's not deceptive because it can be a safety thing, and it's also about consent, and it's about you explaining and revealing things to people at a time that's right for you. But when some people come to a certain point where, as I said earlier, they might be close to somebody in every other way, you know, maybe they've really been worried and concerned about speaking because of things that might have happened in the past when they've spoken, but they feel like it's the right time and it's people they can trust. It might make them feel sick at heart if they don't then go on to say something. Someone in your life is being discriminatory against witches and you want to help them understand and learn. That's a reason that I've come across, is just really wanting to clear up somebody's ignorance and open someone more to life by helping them recognize that witches are real people. You know, we're not drinking the blood of children. I mean, well, I am, and it looks a bit weird here because I've mixed it with orange juice, but it's very much the blood of children. Delish. Okay. I've put here, it seems like the right thing to do. And I suppose that encompasses a lot of these. You feel like a fraud if you don't tell people. Again, that is a feeling, not a fact. You think someone else is going to tell them first, and that can sometimes be blackmail as well. That can be this feeling that you've told someone that you later went on to realise you couldn't trust, and then they have that power over you. One of the best ways to take power away from someone when it comes to being shamed for something or having something held over you is to do it yourself, to take the control. You know, the way that I always say it, and I got this from an Irish friend of mine, is you can't sling shit at me if I've already rubbed it down myself. You know what I mean? So that can come up. It's a deal breaker for you is a big one. If they don't accept that you're a witch, it's not going to work out. This is particularly true with new friends or partners, obviously. I know some people that when they very first go on a date or when they very first meet a friend, they want to get it out of the way very quickly. You know, it's kind of it's a test. It's a litmus test for how solid that relationship can go on to be. One doesn't want to invest overly in something for ages and ages, only to realise that, like, you know, gosh darn it, this person is really not into me being a part of the craft, and I've really put a lot into this, and suddenly, you know, I've realised it's not viable. You want to talk to someone about it is a big one. You know, sometimes you really want to confide in somebody in your life about what is so important to you. One thing that I always think about coming out of the broom closet for that reason is that it's great that we have online spaces now. It's great that we have Discords, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you're doing your thing online. You know, we can set up accounts that are more anonymous, they're not necessarily linked to our public accounts, and we can go in search of people to have these great conversations with. I think in the past it was even probably more high pressure. I mean, look, of course, before the 50s in the UK, it was incredibly high pressure because it was fucking illegal to be a witch. Can you believe that? It's surreal to me that it's still illegal in some countries. It's just, the mind boggles. But anyway, that's a different video. But, you know, I think back in the day, you only would have the people to talk to that were around you. And so the loneliness, I think, gets to you. And that sense of wanting to be authentic in front of somebody really gets to you. You're pretty sure the other person is a witch. That is a big one. That is a big one. I've had that from a few different people. Like, well, you know, she has a pentacle on her rucksack, or he's wearing a pentacle necklace, or I saw a book that was very telling on their bookshelf. And I think even if they're not a witch, they are open to it, right? So that's a big one. So that's kind of a risk assessment thing. You're leaving home, so you have the freedom to be more open. I love to speak to witches that are in this era, you know, the freak flag flying kind of era where they don't need to worry anymore about towing the line. Love that. They're towing this sacred circle instead. You want to stop attending church and praying with your family and partner, or partner. Either or. That's a big one too. It's it gets to some people. I know lots of witches that are fine with still going to services and fine with all of that. It doesn't bother them at all. Other witches are particularly, you know, it's a struggle for them. And there is no right answer. You're not wrong for feeling that, you know. Like I said, everyone's got to assess for themselves. And these are just some of the reasons that I could think of, you know. I wanted to list them to show you that whatever your reasons are, you're not alone. And I've had loads of conversations of this nature, and these things are totally normal to talk with yourself about. Who are you coming out to? That's the next thing that I think really can be considered when you are thinking about being more open about your witchcraft. If you know particularly that there is somebody that you want to reveal your witchcraft to, you want to talk about your practice, then obviously I would hope that you've kind of assessed whether or not they're trustworthy, if you know that you do not want necessarily for that information to be spread more widely. In the sacred words of Ernest Hemingway, the only way to know whether or not you can trust someone is to trust them. In the end, we can do all of the summing up that we like, and we can weigh up all the pros and cons, but essentially it's always going to feel high risk to trust somebody emotionally, especially with really important information about ourselves. So you know, one wouldn't delay forever. If they feel like it is, if it feels more and more right to do it, then certainly do it. But don't feel pressure to come out en masse, you know. If you come out online, you don't have to come out in your life. If you come out to one parent, you don't necessarily have to come out to the other. Might be more difficult if they're married and they sit awake at night twittering to each other. But you know, there's different things. You come out to one friend, you'd have to come out to another friend, you know. It really has to be the level of comfort that is available for you with each person. Therefore, you would have to think about the level of risk, that it would travel more widely without your consent. Obviously, if you realise that you do want to stagger your coming out process, right, you want to scatter the information consciously rather than putting it everywhere, then don't put it on social media where other people might see it that you weren't planning on, and definitely don't tell the gossipy work colleague that you see every day. Just, you know, make some sensible decisions for yourself and your protection. Let's talk about the question of when you would come out, okay? Earlier in this video, I mentioned that some people like to discuss their witchcraft or reveal their practice very early on in the game when it comes to friends and partners and stuff like that. And that is because if there is an emotional investment being made, i.e., you know, you're not seeing that person because they work for you or you work for them or you work together or whatever. If there's an emotional investment being made and you feel like you want it to run on into the future, there's no point in, you know, there's no point in sort of dancing around the cauldron. You really may as well get in there and see what's up. I was trying to find a way of saying beating around the bush. I was like, dancing around the cauldron, that'll do, that's fine. You know, earlier when I mentioned about people like wearing something that seems witchy or having some books that seem witchy or witchcraft adjacent, I think that can be a good reason to actually have those things around or wear them. Again, you know, provided it's safe and you feel reasonably comfortable and empowered to do that. I know everyone's situation is different, but it is one way to find your own, isn't it? You know, there's a reason people wear rainbow pins and stuff like that, or have a rainbow keychain like I do. It's not just to celebrate pride. It's also to give the nod and the wink. It's to say what's up, just in case there's any confusion. There actually isn't that much confusion with me. People's gaydar is right on when it comes to me being a queer woman. For some reason, I don't know, it must be my fabulously tailored designer shirts, darling. But yeah, there's a reason. And so we do the same thing. We kind of call in our own, you know. One thing about timing that is important, if you are going to state that you're a witch and you haven't said anything about it so far, you don't know how it's going to go, is that you should try not to do it when you're on the clock and it's kind of pressurized in that regard. So for example, I would advise not breaking the news that you're a witch when you're both just about to go to bed, or one of you has a really early meeting, or one of you is just about to run off to work. Don't do it before a family dinner. Don't do it before some event that you're trying to get ready for, or that you will imminently be getting ready for. Try and do it at a time when you're having some period of quality interaction with that person, where you can both have the time to discuss it. And we'll talk about that later in the video, about the discussion and what you do and do not have to commit to in that regard. But yeah, I think that's one thing that's come up when I've discussed with witches about their coming out experiences, if they had them indeed. That's one thing, is just kind of like the timing could have been better chosen, or in fact that they really thought consciously about the timing for that kind of reason, because they wanted to like really give it the respect that it deserves, you know, because for some people it's big news and it's not something that they expected, especially not if you previously had other religious allegiances and you were a very different way, and this is kind of like a big thing, you know, that you are now into this and you've realized this is your path. So give it the time it deserves. I also wanted to mention in this section of the video, darlings, the format that you would use to come out of the broom closet to someone. There's nothing wrong with doing it via some kind of messaging format as opposed to face-to-face, but just be very aware that sometimes when you don't do it, you know, live face-to-face or online face-to-face, when you do it in some kind of written format, there can be misunderstandings when it comes to tone. Okay, for example, this is just a really simple example. Imagine if you say to somebody, look, by the way, I'm a witch, I just thought you should know, in a message to them on WhatsApp or whatever, and they come back with, oh, wow, nothing else, just, oh, wow. That can mean about 3 different things. It can mean, oh, wow, okay, or it can mean, oh, wow, you know, or it can mean, oh, wow. You know, it can mean a lot of different things, all right? And being as we are with our very complex brains, we tend to overthink and melt down about stuff. So sometimes it's the better thing to really get a fuller sense of somebody's answer. Different people do like to communicate differently, and also we have different ways of communicating with different people dependent upon their proximity to us, their needs, the way that they like to communicate, etc. So this is definitely not one size fits all. I just thought I'd mention it. And now, darlings, just a quick word from my sponsor for the video, Skillshare. Skillshare offers a lot of different information to help you develop career opportunities or personal development inspiration with its huge selection of different courses. The courses cover a lot of different topics, including time management, branding, creativity, project realization, all that good stuff. I thought for this particular video, I would feature a couple of courses that promote authenticity and helping you to share your story, because of course, the subject for this video is all about being honest and really showing up to express who you are and what your beliefs are. So the first course is by Linda and David. It's called Share Your Story. Linda and David are a creative couple in the fields of art direction and design, and they will offer a lot of engaging tips about how to make a really good about video to share where you're coming from and what your story is all about. The next course I want to mention that I really love is Aaron Palabyab's From Clueless to Content Creator. Aaron is a filmmaker, and the course is all about how to stand out and make a difference online with watchable content and really expressing yourself authentically. There are tons of other tools for helping you develop your online voice and building an online audience. Do you want to start to explore Skillshare for free for a month? Just be one of the first 1,000 people to click the link down below, and it also supports the channel as well. I would recommend for coming out of the broom closet, my darlings, that you have some kind of post coming out plan. Do you have a place that you can pop out to for a little bit of space if you feel like you need some reflection, if you feel like you just want to, you know, contemplate on what was said, or indeed, dependent upon what the situation is, if you feel like you will really need the space because it hasn't gone as well as you'd hoped. You know, I think we should prepare ourselves for a number of different reactions. Do you have any online witchy friends or real life witchy friends that you can kind of tell that you are going through this process in your life, so they can be there for you, so they can provide that extra support, that kind of thing? I think that's good to think about. Have you chosen a time of day when you can take off to a coffee shop and journal potentially? Have you communed with your guides, your ancestors, your deities, so they can provide you with comfort, or so they can even give you some direction about when might be the best time to do this, dependent upon what kind of system you work with? Maybe a working can be done around the outcome, whether that's a working about release, protection, celebration, whatever it might be. I do think that having that post-workout stuff in place, workout? Post coming out, it feels like a workout, believe me. Dependent upon the circumstances, it can be quite exhausting. So yeah, just I would definitely think of that, you know, think about some self-care that would need to be done afterwards in the event of any outcome. Let's talk about the words that you can use. Okay, as many of you know, I'm a wordy witch. I think words are very important. I think words can be sacred. I think words can be both spellbinding and spellbreaking. I think they're a very potent form of witchcraft, if indeed you want them to be. So a lot of people start when they're coming out as a witch by saying something like, I want to tell you something and I don't know what your reaction will be, but I just want you to know that I love you and that is why I'm telling you, because I feel that sense of closeness and I feel like it's the right time. You know, I think a lot of people don't necessarily want to say I'm a witch right off the bat, like, hey, I'm a witch, because it might sound too alarming or it might not even be understood. Not everybody has the same working knowledge of what a witch exactly is. So we kind of find our ways in to explaining. You might want to say, I've been going in a different spiritual direction lately. I'm looking at alternative spiritual practices. You know, and I think that's just as legitimate as using the word witch. I've found in my many years of being a witch that there is a big discussion and a big internal exploration around owning the W word and around really sort of like grasping it for yourself. And I understand, I had my journey with that word. And if you want to watch a video from a long time ago when I used to cut my own fringe, you will find a video on my channel called Owning the Word Witch. And I know some people that watch my channel have gone back to that video a few times because they've told me. So I think it's one of the more favoured ones. It's the less popular in terms of how many views, but I know that a lot of those views are by the same people because they find it such a heartwarming video. And I've gone back and rewatched it, and I love that era for me, you know, I really do. Even the bangs, all right? Even the bangs. So I've been through that journey as well of, am I owning this word? What is happening? And I've shrugged it off again and then put it on again. I used to describe it as an elaborate, sort of very heavy fur coat, even though I'm vegan. But some kind of, you know, heavy piece of clothing or heavy accessory that I love, but that I had to figure out how I could own it and how I could walk in it and how it would look right and what I would pair it with. It was not just a straightforward right out of the gate, like, yeah, you know, I'm a witch and it stayed that way. No, I had my journey. So there is a lot of pressure that I think a witch feels to own and claim the word publicly and loudly. And I think that gets in the way when we're talking about broom closet stuff, because it's not always that simple, it's not always that easy, and it's not always totally safe, you know. I've written in my notes here that one way of wording it could be something like, I've been increasingly interested in witchcraft lately and it's becoming important to me. And that could be a way to start it. You could also say, I don't believe the same things I used to and I am looking into other stuff right now. You know, it's really feeling it out. I don't think that we have to discount the fact that we might want to feel it out in a conversation and see where it goes before we move to the greater pieces of honesty. You can say, I still love and respect your beliefs. There's nothing wrong with reassuring a loved one as you also explain the truth of your spiritual path. You can say, I am the same person. I just want to explore something else for my fulfillment. You might want to start by asking a question. You know, you might want to start by saying something like, oh, you know, I've been interested in crystals lately, or, you know, I've been kind of interested in astrology or cards or candle making or whatever. And that can be your angle. That can kind of be your way in. You could start by saying, I've been feeling much more positive lately and I wanted to share why that is. I have begun a new spiritual practice. So there you're really opening with like, hey, whatever your opinions are, I just want to let you know this is the reason that life is going better for me. And I think that also can be a good angle as well. You know, don't be afraid to explore how you would say something. And I'm not asking you to massively overthink it. I'm trying to give you the freedom to understand that there are different ways that we might want to broach this with somebody. I want to talk a little bit now about offering to answer questions and also about giving more details. For a lot of people, when they tell somebody they're a witch, there are questions and there are sort of prompts to go more in depth, to explain things. That actually can be really hairy and long-winded because a lot of us do not have practices that are sweet and simple. I know that for me, you guys are some of the only people that I've sat down and explained my practice to as deeply as I have, because it is so wild and so it's like a big tapestry made of lots of different bits of quilt from everywhere. And, you know, some of them were fashioned in my dream world and in my imagination, and some of them have pop culture characters on them. And basically, I think I'm only explaining that in full to people who are really invested themselves in building something like that. So I've never even had a conversation with my own mother that much about what I do. Okay, she just assumes it's something probably a bit psychedelic and slightly batshit. And that's all she needs to know. As long as she knows I'm safe and happy, it's fine, okay? So basically, when you say to someone that you're a witch, you can actually end by saying, I'm happy to answer any questions you have or clear up any confusions. So in that way, you're kind of opening the floor to questions being asked and details being provided. But I wanted to say, think ahead of time about how much detail you actually want to give to whoever you're coming out to. And don't be afraid to say things like, I'm not really sure about that part yet. I'm just exploring, you know, or I'm only just learning and it's all just coming together piecemeal, you know. I'll give you more details when I have more details. You can also offer them websites or videos if they are genuinely interested. I think if someone really is interested and they want to go there and they want to understand, there are lots more resources now than there used to be. But I think you can only offer to answer questions if you really are willing to answer questions, or if you're even able to. You are not obligated to go in depth about your journey. I don't feel obligated. I took the burden of proof off of my shoulders a long time ago. I'm not trying to convince anyone else to believe what I believe. So why would I spend tons of time trying to convince somebody that it works or it's good for me or anything else? You know, I'm not going to do that. Okay, I'm not running a cult here. I'm just doing what I do. And people can take inspiration from it, or they can think it's ridiculous or whatever they want. It's fine. So I took the burden of proof off of me a long time ago. I also took it off of me because at the end of the day, I'm never really going to understand how or why this stuff works for me, or why I'm so attracted to it, beyond the fact that it suits my personality and I can't actually help it. I can't help it. Even when I was a kid, I was being a witch. I was making spells, doing rituals. I know a lot of you get what I'm saying, okay? Because you're the same. So I can't really help it. So, you know, I really did take the pressure off of me to try and connect all the dots for everybody. It's not for them to need those dots connected. You know, I also think if you're new to this and you might still be figuring it out, you might not want to share. You know, sometimes even if you've done it for years, it might be too complicated, too personal. So you can say that you do not want to open up past a certain point. You know, you might, if somebody's got a lot of questions and you don't feel like they're trying to be skeptical or rude, but you feel like they really are just asking questions because they desire to know more, or maybe they're kind of worried and they want you to clear things up for them, you can say, I'm not able to open up about all the details just yet, but I really love you for being interested, and maybe we'll revisit this another time. You know, I think it's for a lot of people, they do understand that spirituality is extremely personal. I used to try and bug my Auntie Mary to talk to me about Catholicism all the time. I wanted to understand her take on things. I wanted to understand how her beliefs differed from my Nana's beliefs, who was her sister. I wanted to understand all these things, and my Auntie Mary was not as forthcoming as my Nana. My Nana would answer every question I had about Catholicism, but my Auntie Mary would just say, spirituality is very personal, and every single person has their own way. And you'll find your way, you know, which is a beautiful thing to be told as a child, to have that freedom. But I also was very curious, and it used to frustrate me that she kind of seemed like a closed book, you know. So I was curious, but I also learned early on that, like, even if you have a very potent practice, you don't necessarily want to talk about it. Or maybe I was just an impetuous child. I was a pechumonik, as they say in Russian, which is someone who can't stop asking why. I was definitely a pechumonik, and I probably still am. One thing that I think it's really good to sort of ask yourself once you've come out of the broom closet to somebody is, what are your needs? You know, after you've come out, what do you require? Do you have any requests? You know, you might want to say something like, please respect my altar space. If you live with someone and it's in a communal area, you might want to say, look, just so you know, I'm telling you this because I want to be more open with my stuff. I want to put my books out. I want to have an altar space. And so please respect those things. When you see them, don't touch them. If I have my cards out, please don't touch them. Those things. You might want to say, I don't want you to share this with XYZ person at this time. I'm coming out to you at this point and only you. So, you know, I want to discuss with other people in my own time. You might also want to ask what they need. It really depends on the situation though, darlings. It really does. If you know that someone in your life is probably going to say, I'm glad you asked what I need you to stop all this shit now and come to church with me on Sunday, then you're probably not going to be so open to asking what somebody else's needs are, because you've already worked so hard to come to the point where you're actually being honest about what you need, right? So, you know, you may want to ask them what they need, but you may not. I think somebody might answer with, yeah, I want a time to talk about this at another point so I can get more answers. They might want to ask you not to tell certain family members of theirs if you're married or you're together or whatever, because it might cause, you know, an uproar. They might want to ask you not to post anything about this online. Now, the way that you respond to those things will be different depending on the situation and what's going on with you. If you have children together and you're just sort of acquainting yourself with the craft, and your partner asks something like, well, I don't want you to talk to the children about this. I think what we're teaching them at the moment about spirituality is what we should stick with. That's a very complex subject. No one can tell you what to do about that. That's up to you. But that might be a request that comes back. You know, this might be too much to discuss immediately. I think it can be separate conversations where you both bring your deal breakers and your areas of flexibility to the table. In other words, do not put loads of pressure on the coming out conversation to be the only conversation. The reason that we boot open the witchcraft door is so that we can continue to walk through it thereafter. We don't boot it open all at once and take everybody on a fucking tour of the entire room, you know? We intend for it to be easier to return then to the conversation. So if somebody is taking your coming out moment and making it about like, I need to tell you everything I feel, you need to tell me everything you feel, you need to tell me where this is going, I need to understand this, this and this, you know, you can sort of very clearly say like, you know, I feel like this is the time where I just explain what's up. I don't think I've got the bandwidth for everything else, you know, can we pencil something in next Wednesday? It's too big. It's too big for one chat, guys, honestly, sometimes. Before I end this video, I just want to talk about the period of adjustment, okay? And again, this is coming from my experience as a spiritual counsellor and a witchcraft mentor for many, many years now. Can't believe I can finally say that. For many, many years, I've been doing this work, and there is sometimes a period of adjustment afterwards, okay? Some people do need time to think about what it is that you've said to them, and it doesn't always have to be disrespectful. Maybe they want to look into it more, maybe they want to sit with it and reflect. You know, sometimes you need a period of adjustment depending on how they've reacted, and that's okay too. You know, it's perfectly fine for people to have those adjustment periods. The person that you tell might not have the perfect words for you right away. Some people in the moment of being told information that they weren't expecting actually need a while to get their words together. And this is something that for me, I really had to learn, because I'm very quick off the mark with my words, not with my numbers, I have to say. that department is a shit show. But with my words, I'm very quick to know what it is I exactly want to say. Therefore, I've had to really do a lot of work to recognise that it's not okay to expect that of others. People have their different sort of ways of replying, and sometimes people might want to compile something first. I would say try not to see these things as a sign that the person you've told is never going to accept it or is harshly judging it. You know, I think let them have their space. You have your space for reflection and journaling and ritual, or a well-earned nap, darling. And then you can come back to it, you know. Try not to demand or plead for an instant reaction, or to get the reaction that you want. Lots of people react in the moment and then they rethink, to be honest. I mean, how many times, I know I do it, how many times have you said something to someone, or someone said something to you, and the reaction has been something that later was apologised for or later was rethunk? I've definitely done that. I did that last year, like literally September last year. Someone told me something, that they weren't going to be attending something, or something couldn't happen. And I was like, oh my God, this is absolute nightmare. We've planned it for so long. And then I literally had one 50-minute therapy session an hour later, brought it up in the therapy session, totally changed my mind, rang my friend up and was like, I'm really sorry. I'm so sorry I behaved like that. We'll still have a good time without you. And if you haven't got the spoons for it and you need to stay home, that's okay. And I'm sorry I spoke to you that way. Like, you can go from a very strong conviction on something to then rethinking. So please be aware that that is what could definitely happen, you know. If you come up against heightened emotions, or you come up against threats, It's definitely up to you to decide how much of that feels acceptable or safe, okay? If there is a very strong reaction and one that you weren't expecting, again, we need to make sure that that post coming out plan is in place. Consider your circumstances and consider the person who's acting out when you tell them and what you think you need to do in that situation. Darlings, please share your experiences of coming out of the broom closet, or indeed coming out of the woo-woo wardrobe, as I call it, if you don't claim the word witch, but you do sort of similar kinds of things. There's an overlap, you know? It's a Venn diagram and you exist somewhere in the middle or somewhere on the woo-woo side. That's fine. Let us know the good, the bad and the ugly. Were there people that you came out to? Did you indeed come out at all? I didn't really come out at all. It was more of a sort of slow and gradual thing where people just saw from an early age that I was witchy as fuck and I definitely wasn't going to be stopping. So it was kind of like that, you know, but I would love to know any experiences you have, any tips or advice you have. A lot of the things that I'm giving guidance on here have been things that I have counselled witches through. And so, you know, it's really important that we get as many different stories as possible, as many different understandings as possible. I've noticed the patterns that I've noticed with coming out, but let's hear from you now. Darlings, on the 26th of February, if you're watching this at the time of upload, then it is February. On the 26th of February, I am hosting a private workshop on Patreon called Facing Fear of the Craft, and that might be something that interests you. It will deal with different elements of fear, including the fear of coming out, but also the fear of spells working, the fear of spells not working, and other things. So please join live if you're already a Pop-Tart on Patreon, and if not, then you might want to consider joining in and coming and being a part of it for this month or you know, going forward. You can get a solitary witch reading with me. I do a solitary witch reading, which is really focusing deeply on the witchy path and how you want to design it and everything. I will leave that below. I also do witchy brainstorming sessions where we go very in depth about what you might want to do in terms of ritual, spellcraft, devotionals, altar design, you know, your book of mirrors, your book of shadows. We will throw all those ideas around. So I'll leave that down below as well for you. It's been a massive privilege to finally talk about this in depth, and I hope it's been of interest. And if you know anyone who needs to watch this video, please send it along to them. Much love. Keep it rebellious, my darlings. Keep it witchy, and blessed be. Mwah.